What's up, everybody? We are back. John Delarose here, the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction. Last time on our Star Trek Eagle Moss collection, we did the first volume Countdown, which was a bizarre one about a prequel to the 2009 movie. Weird spot to start out, as I can't imagine collectors liking that. Now we get into Harlan Ellison, City on the Edge of Forever. Now, Harlan Ellison is a notoriously hard writer to work with, and City on the Edge of Forever is one of the most famous, if not the most famous, Star Trek story. Hailed forever. Everybody loves it. I've probably watched it 20 times over my lifetime. It is a beautiful work of art. But, of course, this being the 60s network TV, network censors got in on it. Gene Roddenberry had to throw his hat in and change things and make his draft. There's so many cooks in the kitchen that they really changed a lot of it. Now, the heart and soul was still there from Harlan Ellison's work, but Harlan Ellison is a way better writer than any of these people who touched the work after him. So it did water it down a little bit, and it did change things a little bit. And so we do have the original teleplay, and then we can imagine what it would look like if there weren't. And again, there were other, of course, budgetary constraints on some things that we don't have to deal with in comics, and we get to read it from a fresh perspective at this point. Now, I'm stoked about this, and so this is a much better offering than the first one to get into this. Now, this adaptation is by Scott Tipton and David Tipton, who are just, they're stalwart writers, and J.K. Woodward did the art, I wasn't familiar with, but I get into this, and he does these, painted looks that are really cool. So this is awesome. I don't usually love the, quote, realism comic art, but I think because this is a representation of a TV show, it really worked well. And I love the look of this. Obviously you just take shots of the Enterprise or whatever and then kind of watercolors it, and or take somebody's look, their photo, and then kind of watercolors it, and that's how he does things, and then sets them in the backgrounds. It's an interesting way to do comics, and it's probably less on the layout of the panel work, but it is a lot of work. I mean, he does his beautiful watercolors himself, and they're just phenomenal. So they change it here, and there's this guy dealing drugs on the Enterprise. Of course, that would never happen on the TV show. And he's just a bad dude, and he screws somebody up and then takes off into the transporter room and goes down to this planet where the Guardians of Forever are. And we have our away team going off again, just like the painted look is just so gorgeous and works so well for Star Trek. And look at this, especially when we get into these landscapes, these alien landscapes, which was not in the show. And this is what Harlan Ellison really envisioned. And the Guardians of Forever were supposed to look like this, not just some circular, muddy thing. So it looks awesome. He went back in time and jumped into the little time portal to try to escape things. And then they beam back up to the ship, and history's changed, and there's no Enterprise. It's called the Condor, and all these evil dudes really are in charge of things here now. And so Kirk's like, this isn't good. So they go back to the Guardians of Forever, and they're like, we want to stop this. How do we stop this? Beautiful colors. I mean, this was a joy to look at, and a joy to read. And then they get sent back to the 30s, just like the Star Trek episode. Now, in the Star Trek episode, Dr. McCoy got some weird infection or something and went crazed and jumped back, and they had to stop Dr. McCoy. And there was no guest star, there was no drug use, there was no none of that plot in there. They got rid of all of that, and it changes things. So it's very interesting. The Depression's happening. We get a nice perspective of the Depression. Kirk and Spock don't become like homeless bums that Edith Gal has to take in, but they start working at this guy's house where they hide, and he pays them to do a job, and he gives them board. So they end up in a little better position where they're not hobos in this like they were in the episode, and we get the same classic look that they had from the episode here. And so they finally meet Edith Keeler, and she's, a motivational speaker, and they get close with her. Spock's trying to fix his tricorder to figure out exactly when the watershed event is going to happen. Very beautiful work in here. Kirk starts getting closer with her, and we get some nice touching scenes with them, and then a discussion with Spock of like, I don't want her to die, but you must let her, once they figure out what's going on. Then the dude shows up, And, of course, we get the famous scene where Edith Keeler gets hit by a car. And Spock actually has to stop Kirk from doing it, not stop the other guy. So, you know, it follows a lot of the beats of the episode. Look at this beautiful art right here. Oh, my gosh. What a great representation. They go back into time, and it ends with Edith Keeler dying, Kirk being upset. They ask about the crewman because he's still trapped in time. He went back in after he was taken out, and apparently he got trapped in a timeless star explosion to where he's going to be suffering for all eternity. Very dark. And this is obviously not in the episode. What a cool representation, but yeah, scary stuff. Spock gives a nice speech. He's like, hey, you know, a woman was literally offered the world for love because Kirk was ready to be in love with her enough to actually not reset the world. And what an incredible gift that would be. And that's oh my gosh, what a nice line. So Harlan Ellison did great work here. This was well worth the read. It is, in fact, better than the actual episode. So I'm very pleased with this. Beautiful art all the way around. We get some behind the scenes. We get some process about how he actually did the backgrounds and the detailing. Very nice artwork, which I really appreciate. Some script notes. So it's like a full deluxe edition right here. And then we get our gold key issue. So every one of these volumes from this Eagle Moss collection, which has matching spines to actually where it makes a portrait over across the spines of them all, has the old 60s gold key Star Trek. And this is issue number 2 in here. And this is a much better issue than the first issue also, or the first volume and first issue. So we get they land on this planet. And again, they just didn't have all the details of the Enterprise yet, and so there's they're drawing this as they're learning what's the final stuff going to be on the air. So there's a couple inconsistencies with regular Star Trek, but this is a beautiful science fiction yarn right here. They get stuck on an asteroid, and there's these people here who convince them they're just settlers who just crashed their ship, but they learn that they're actually prisoners who were sentenced here. And this alien civilization is really brutal. So they send these prisoners to an asteroid, and they let them live for a while, and they don't know when their asteroid is going to get shot out of the air, or they're just going to get killed. So they're on death row, and they have to live knowing that they're going to die, and they could die at any moment, and that their asteroid is just going to get just blown from under them. And that's about to happen here as Kirk and Spock escape. I don't know what it is, but I think the art just is a little better than the first issue also. It's maybe the artist just needed to get his footing a little bit. Maybe the colors are a little bit more dynamic than the last one, but it just seems less, I don't know, just a little bit better done. There's a lot of talking heads in this, which is, you know, is what it is. But the Enterprise takes off, and there's a kind of a first foray into, you know, the Prime Directive here, and this is actually their culture, so we had to just let them die. So Spock's pretty brutal here, very brutal. Like all the prisoners died in this. Wouldn't have gotten past the TV censors probably, but a very excellent episode or issue or whatever you want to call it for the gold key here. So I didn't like the first volume much, but then I got into this, and this is just like, this is quintessential. You can buy these volumes by themselves if you don't want to do the matching spines and all that. So I highly recommend this. This Harlan Ellison script is wonderful, and the backup story in here is equally as good. Let me know what you think about this and Star Trek and all the fun things. I'd love to hear from you guys. We'll be back soon. Hit the like and subscribe button. See you.